One of the biggest questions I've been asked this weekend is, what is this defense going to look like under Anthony Weaver? Well, we'll dive into that today. Also, we'll discuss how Anthony Weaver, it looks like his ideals fit this culture. On top of that, Jerry Sandusky, that's with a G, the Ravens play-by-play announcer, was on Joe Rose today, and we'll go over what he said about Anthony Weaver coming to Miami. Also, Peyton Manning praises Tua Tagovailoa. We'll talk a little Cam Smith. And man, in the opening, we got to talk about the Pro Bowl, and I'm sorry, but I'm about to address this Justin Field nonsense. Smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new. Let's get into it.
Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field on the near side, man open, touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep! He's going over the touchdown again! Let's go!
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go! What is good, Fin Nation? What is good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for another one. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new on the way in, because your boy is a little pumped up on this Monday, and I'm about to go in a little bit here, all right? First of all, let's skip all the hellos and everything, and let's hop right into this, because this narrative is, first of all, let me start by saying this. If you are advocating for the Miami Dolphins to move off of Tua Tagovailoa in favor of Justin Fields, not only do you not know ball, you're an idiot and you don't understand this offense. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. First of all, let's go back. Let's take us back to the Flores era when I would do Tua Tuesday. It just finished its 4th year. So there's people who have come on the scene and think that they started Tua Tuesday when it's been happening for years before they even existed. Let's get that out of the way first. So every single snap of Tua Tagovailoa has been broken down on this channel since he was subbed in the Jets game when Fitzpatrick was around. Every single snap, all right? So let's start there. Secondly, as the years went on and as the discourse between Tua and Flores grew and, people who were Tua lovers wanted him out and stuff like all this jazz, people were saying, hey, I want to see Sean Peyton. Hey, I want to see him in a Saints offense. What'll he look like? Blah, 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 blah. I was the only one. Name the platform. What do you want to talk? YouTube? You want to talk Twitter? You want to talk Instagram? You want to talk Facebook? Name the platform. I was the only one that said, no, that is not the answer. Tua's skill set is ideal for a Kyle Shanahan offense. He's a timing, rhythm passer with keyhole accuracy. That's the offense you want him in. The pocket presence, his ability to read a defense pre-snap, that's the offense you want him in. I said that from the get because I actually watch the film and I actually know what I'm watching when I watch the film. So let's continue now. So now we get Mike McDaniel. Remember, you got people out here who were calling Mike McDaniel a glorified Adam Gase when he got him. Let's call a spade here. You had people trying to compare him to Joe Philbin and Cam Cameron and all this jazz. All right. And again, only guy on any platform, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. When we were looking for an offensive coordinator, who were Reason's 2 choices? Who? If we're going experienced, I said, give me Pep Hamilton. If we're promoting someone, who was my answer? The run game coordinator in San Francisco at the time, Mike McDaniel. Okay? So again, I'm just setting the precedent here that So you can see here that I was out ahead of everything you're seeing between Tua and McDaniel and the results. Okay? Now, even down to the point when everyone knows how I felt about Austin Jackson. Everyone, from the draft to before we got Mike McDaniel, everyone knew how I felt about it. I said, in this scheme, this gap scheme, he's done. It's over. Then when we got Mike McDaniel, who was the only person on any platform saying, watch, Austin Jackson's career is going to be revived because of the wide zone blocking scheme we're bringing in, and it's perfect for a guy with quick feet and the athleticism and the ability to get to the second level like Austin Jackson. All he's got to do is develop his anchor and his man strength, and voila, he's just got extended. Now, I say all that to say this. These people out here, because there are not one, there are not two. I'm seeing them all over Twitter, and I see them on YouTube. Okay? Justin Fields has some of the ugliest tape when it comes to passing since he's entered the NFL. That's a fact. You want to see how big of a fact it is? I've had him on this channel. You've seen him grow, and you've seen him change based on the film, his evaluation of Tua Tagovailoa. Alex Rollins, he has over 100,000 subscribers for breaking down films. Go watch his breakdown from 4 months ago against Justin Fields. Even he says some of the ugliest film I've ever evaluated in the NFL right now. That's exactly what he says. You don't even got to go watch Alex Rollins. Go watch the Buccaneers game. Go watch the Buccaneers game in September. All right? Second year in Getsy's offense, who's running a wide zone iteration of Shanahan's offense. All right? That's what they're running over there. All right? Now, why did Getsy just get a job? Did anyone follow Getsy's little coordinator job search? Did anyone follow Getsy's OC search closely? Because the Raiders went to him after Kingsbury backed out, and the word on the street is, regarding the hire, is NFL circles, they're not blaming Luke Getsy for the Bears' offense and their struggles. It's all coming on Justin Fields' shoulders. Why is it coming on his shoulders? I'll tell you why. One of the main things of this offense is timing. Justin Fields has terrible timing. Awful timing. Some of the worst timing in the NFL. He isn't a fast processor. Yes, he can process. But see, when you look at the time to throw, and you say, oh, he's extending. You're not watching. You tell me right there you're not watching the film. If you go watch the film on Justin Fields, the reason why he has such long time to throw is go look at how good that offensive line was. Go. He's taking so much time to throw. Why? Why is he taking so much time to throw? Because he's sitting in the pocket not knowing where to go with the football. The Chicago Bears had the 5th best pass block win rate, the 2nd best run block win rate. Fields had over 3 seconds to throw. The Miami Dolphins had the 31st pass block win rate, the 8th best run block win rate. Tua had 2.36 times to throw. That's from ESPN. That's not even from PFF. Those win rates are from ESPN. And what happened? Tua threw for over almost 2,100 yards more than Chicago. And don't tell me he don't got weapons. They drafted Cole Kmet for him. They traded how much for DJ Moore? Don't tell me they ain't giving him weapons. Because it comes down to Justin Fields. This guy can't even read leverage, and I'm not even just saying that. This guy doesn't even understand leverage at the NFL level right now. Again, go back and watch the Bucs game. You see all these examples. Go watch the Bucs games. This guy was missing wide receivers. He was staring down, and I don't mean missing the throw. I mean looking them off. after he stares them down and they're wide open because he doesn't even know where to go with the football. Justin Fields is not the passer that's required in this offense. I'm going to tell you this. Jimmy Garoppolo's a better passer than Justin Fields. That's an actual fact. Pretty damn close. Pretty damn close. Anyone telling you Justin Fields over Tua Tagovailoa doesn't know football, doesn't understand what this offense requires of their passers, and number 3, all they want is Tua out here. You want to get rid of the guy who just led the league in passing yards and multiple metrics. You want to get rid of that for a guy who's never even cracked 3,000 passing yards in the NFL? And why did I say what I said about McDaniel in this offense and seeing Tua in this offense when I started this rant off? I'll tell you why I said that. Because I knew the fit. I knew what Tua did well is what's required of a quarterback in this offense. Everything Fields struggles at are what are key requirements in this offense. Fast pre-snap and post-snap processing. You got to be able to target the middle of the field, and you got to be quick with your timing and decisions in the pocket. He doesn't have any of that. He's not a good passer right now. He's not a good... He has terrible pocket presence. If you watch him in the pocket, he's terrible pocket presence and feel for the pocket. Just awful. The only reason people are fawning over him is because they see him run a little bit. But you got a guy who's terrible at timing, throws, isn't a fast processor pre-snap or post-snap, can't even read leverage. You want to go with this? Tell me you don't know football and tell me you don't know what's required of this offense. And hell, tell me you ain't watched Justin Fields' film without telling me all those 3 things. It's asinine. It's insane. You want to give up a guy who threw for 4,600 yards, led the league in passing yards and multiple metrics for a guy who hasn't even cracked 3,000 yards. And again, terrible at timing routes. Isn't a good processor. Consistently misses wide open receivers because he stands in the pocket because he doesn't know where to go with the football. Because he's not reading the defense. Can't even read leverage. That's what you want to go with. I said this before when some of y'all were saying Josh Rosen was the truth. When some of y'all were saying Skylar Thompson was quarterback 1. When some of y'all were saying Brissett or Bridgewater would take Tua's job. You guys, all of you who are saying this about Fields and who have all said that stuff, you have no foundation to even stand on to talk about the quarterback position at the NFL level. 0. I just counted 5 times you guys have all been wrong before we even got to Fields. While Tua's out here doing things that haven't been done in a Dolphins uniform since Dan Marino. And, Tua crumbles in the big moments. Have y'all seen Justin Fields' record? Have you seen his win-loss record? Has anyone seen Justin Fields' win-loss record? He was 5-8 in 2023 just to start. I believe he's, 11-29 for his career? 11-29. And you want to give up a guy who has a 65% career winning percentage, has led us to back-to-back playoffs, 3 straight winning seasons. 4. He hasn't had a losing season at the end in the NFL level. Hasn't had a season under 500 at the NFL level. You want to give up all that for a guy who's 11 and 29 at the NFL level. They traded DJ Moore, for DJ Moore. They got Cole Kmet. They built a wall for him. He ran a similar offense to what we're running in the wide zone scheme that Getsy brought over. Showed he couldn't make the timing throws. Showed he couldn't process a defense pre-snap and post-snap fast enough. Constantly missing wide open guys that he even stares down. Whether he misses the throw or he gets off the read. You want to give Tua up for that? Are you crazy? You guys shouldn't even be allowed to talk about football, let alone the quarterback position for those takes. And thank God none of these people have any power or the GMs. Holy jeez. My Lord. Knight says, I'm not going to lie, I'm nervous about Weaver, but I love the smash mouth football he's going to bring. Same here, bro. We'll talk about him. Knight, Fields is just Pat White with a bigger arm. Guy's even thrown for 3,000 yards. And this whole idea, this is why I go back to the McDaniel Tua stuff, right? And me saying Tua was the perfect fit for Shanahan's offense when even Flores was here, I was saying that. Mike McDaniel isn't just going to wave his wand and all of a sudden Fields is going to become all these things. Those are intangible things. We're talking about intangibles. I played the the Baldy clip. He said Tua's known around in NFL league circles for how quick of a processor he is. You want to give that up for a guy who can't even process the field in 3 seconds after the snap? Who can't make timing throws? Like, he's not even a fit. Like, the guy's not even fit. What, just because he can run? Just because you think there might be a little bit more if everything breaks down? Well, go watch. Things have broken down when he can't read the defense and he takes a sack. That offensive line, again, I went over how good they were. They were no joke. They were the number 5 in pass block win rate. The Dolphins were 31st. Again, don't go watch Alex Rollins, his breakdown from 4 months ago, or just go watch the Bucs game. Don't even watch a evaluation. Go watch the Bucs game. And if you come away from that Bucs game telling me he's a fit for this offense, you don't know football. It's that simple. That gun game alone shows he's not ready. And Mike McDaniel ain't going to wave his magic wand. Like I said earlier, I knew Tua was a perfect fit from watching the film when he was with Flores. Because of the things he would do. Because of his strengths you saw on film. That's why I was saying, when people were saying, I want to see him with Sean Payton, I was saying, no, I want to see him with Kyle Shanahan. That's why when the rumors were about, and I've talked about this on the channel before, when the rumors were about with Watson, before they drafted Trey Lance and they traded up for that 3rd pick, who were the 49ers sniffing around? Tua Tagovailoa. Before they moved up in that draft to get Trey Lance, they were sniffing around Tua Tagovailoa. It was talked about in San Francisco media. Like, that's why they were looking, because of the intangible skill set he has. Now, who's worked out in the offense for them? Trey Lance, who can make stuff happen after the play, but because of inexperience at the position, wasn't a good processor, couldn't make the timing throws. Who's working better, that guy or Brock Purdy? Who Tua fits the mold of, who Brock Purdy fits Tua's mold? Huh? There was a reason why Brock Purdy and Tua Tagovailoa have been in the same breath of every conversation this year. It's because they are the perfect quarterbacks for what Shanahan and his disciples want to run. So, I mean, I've watched the film. And again, if you want to see someone who's going to break it down even deeper for you, he's been on the channel before. He has over 100,000 subscribers. Go search Alex Rollins NFL Justin Fields. He had a video from 4 months ago. He will tell you what I told you. Justin Fields has put out some, from a passing standpoint, Justin Fields has put out some of the ugliest quarterback tape since he entered the league. That's literally a fact. Go. And if you don't want to watch and you want your own evaluation, go watch the Bucs game. Go count how many receivers he missed. I got a fun game for you. Count how many receivers he missed, then count how many receivers he missed while he was staring them down. And make sure you can count with your toes because you're going to need them. Just saying. And like I just said, Luke Getsy just got a job with Vegas because the word in the NFL is Justin Fields hindered that offense, not Getsy. That's why Getsy got a job after being let go there. Justin Fields legitimately got a coordinator fired. And guess what? You need player development and growth from inside. It's on him to become a faster processor. That's up here. No one's going to put a crank on your brain and start cranking it so you start processing faster. Doesn't work like that. Timing. Timing comes down to the quarterback itself, not coaching. They're teaching you. This is when they're doing the film work. This is when the ball's got to be out. It's on you to ID it and get the ball out. That's what comes down to pre-snap and post-snap processing, which is not fast enough which is why you see him in the pocket for over 3 seconds and he's not juking and jiving around. He's standing there patting the football, not knowing where to go with it. Happened all game against the Bucs. This is not Madden. And again, McDaniel and Tua work because if you had been watching the film properly since Flores was here, you knew Tua stylistically, even going back to Bama, was the perfect fit for a Shanahan offense. You knew it if you had been watching this kid and actually watching the reps and actually evaluating the reps. You would have known that. Justin Fields is not ideal for that offense. You just saw him fail miserably in that offense under Luke Getsy. LaFleur brought it over with Getsy from Shanahan. It was ran in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers had no problem with it. Tua Tagovailoa has no problem with it. Jordan Love has no problem with it. Jordan Love is a better fit to this offense than Justin Fields will ever be. Better processor, can make the timing throws. He's a way better fit to this. Just because a guy runs around doesn't mean he fits in on offense. And I added Jordan Love in there because people are going to say, well, it's Aaron Rodgers. Okay, well, Jordan Love. Jordan Love's running an iteration of that offense, no problem. Period. Now, I see people asking about the debate and all the stuff. Well, I'm going to be putting up, had sick kids since last Thursday. So tomorrow, Wednesday, I'm going to put up a poll. Look for it under the community tab, and I'll put it on Twitter too. I will ask everyone their top 10 content creators they want me to reach out and bring on. So I see people in the chat asking about it. And again, I will reach out to every single one of them. Those who do not show up, I'm telling you like I'm telling them. I'm for the fans. I want to give the fans what they want. The fans voted, what was it, 79% on YouTube they wanted it. 85% or 89% on it was 85% on Twitter that they wanted it. So the fans want it. That's an over 80% when you do the math. That's over 80% of the fans on the 2 votes want that. So I will reach out. Anyone who does not show up, I don't know what else to say except they're not for you fans. I will reach out to every single one. And I will make sure to provide receipts if anyone wants to ask if I actually did reach out to them. So, again, I will reach out and we will see who shows up and who's really about giving you guys the content that you guys want to see, especially in the off season when everyone's got open schedules, right? So, you know what it is. All right. On the meantime, hey, we're only like 900, well, not even 900. We're like, what, like 850 away from 15K? I'm going to do a big giveaway of 15K. So let's get to 15K. All right. Let's get the 15K. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you're new. PL says your opening monologue is exactly why I am and forever will be a Phinside lifer. Thank God we have you in the Dolphins community. I appreciate you, PL. One of my biggest supporters, man. He always reaches out to me, emails me, talks to me on Patreon too. He's a good dude, man. That's a good dude right there in PL. I'm glad to have you as a lifer, bro. I'm glad to be on this journey with you. So people like you make it worthwhile, man. So I appreciate you, sir. So anyways, let's hop into this because I do have a bit I want to talk about here. I want to talk about Weaver. I want to talk about a lot of here. So let's talk about one of the biggest questions I've been getting is what are we going to get with Anthony Weaver's defense in Miami? And here's the reality. I'm going to lay it out to you. The reality is you just don't know what scheme he's going to run yet. If you go back to 2020, it was mainly Romeo Crennel's scheme that he's running in 2020 with Houston. So we just don't know, but I can give you an idea of what you might expect. Now, when he got hired, I said I expect, he's going to expect players to be multiple, right? Like how we saw Ramsey used in LA. He's going to expect, or how we saw Javon Holland used to be used in terms of coming up into the box, et cetera, et cetera. I talked about how you look at Javon Holland and what he did in Oregon, right? When I brought him up here in October, what was that, 2021? When I brought him up in October 2021 before we drafted him in April, because he was on my top 25 list of players you should watch, because everyone knows I loved Javon Holland coming out. If you go back, and you look at what he did in Oregon, I said this when we hired Weaver, right? You had him playing in the slot. You had him play on the boundary some snaps. You had him single high. You could go 2 high shell. You could come up in the box. This is why when we got Fangio, one of the things I said is we expected Ramsey to maybe play that star role like he did under Staley when they ran this defense. And Raheem Morris, they didn't end up doing that because a player I talked about who could fill that role as well. Because remember, Jalen Ramsey said there's multiple players on the team that could do that. If you look at it, Javon Holland is a perfect example of a guy who could fill that star role if you need him to, right? He could do so many things. Because remember, Ramsey could play safety as well, right? So, we expect the aggressiveness to pick up. We expect guys doing multiple things. So let's get into this, all right? So we're gonna play off of what Jerry Sandusky, and that's Jerry with a G, everyone. I don't want everyone getting that mixed up. It's Jerry with a G, all right? And if you remember Jerry Sandusky, he's a play-by-play announcer, right, for the Baltimore Ravens. His father is John Sandusky. And all of you old-timers might remember John Sandusky a little bit. He played, right? I believe he was a tackle out of Villanova. But he was also the Miami Dolphins O-line coach from 1976 to 1994. I mean, Richmond was under him a little bit. All right? So, John Sandusky, his son now is basically Jerry Sandusky with a G, Gerry. And and he's a play-by-play announcer for the Baltimore Ravens. So, he was on Joe Rose this morning with Omar and everything. And Joe Rose asked him. So I'm going to let him say what he says, and then I'm going to kind of go off that, all right? So this is what Sandusky said about Weaver.
I got to ask you about this one, too. So we got a new defensive coordinator, and Anthony Weaver. I know everybody down here is trying to figure out what this defense might look like with Anthony Weaver, who's the defensive line coach and assistant head coach for the Ravens the last 2 years. What can we expect down here, Jerry, from him?
It will be aggressive and multiple. Anthony's a guy who came up as a defensive lineman in this league. He was a second-round draft pick. He is a quality guy. I mean, you're going to love this guy as your DC. And because he's got a lot of experience, he has seen the benefit of multiple and unpredictable. You know, the Wink Martindales of the world are out there, just blitz all day. And then you got your super conservative guys who just sit back in a cover two shell. Anthony's going to be a guy who's going to adapt personnel, games down a distance, and philosophy of, look, you got a very athletic group on your defensive side. He's going to cut them loose because, like all great coaches, Anthony knows how to adapt scheme to personnel.
All right, so he talked about that, about how he knows how to adapt scheme to personnel. And let's talk about this a little bit more. So when Weaver was a DC in Houston in 2020, the defense blitzed about 35.9% of the time. It was 7th in the NFL of that season. Now, if you look at Fangio this past year, the Dolphins were blitzing about 21.5% of the time. That was 27th in the NFL. Now, you also have to remember, like I said, that was Romeo Crennel's defense that he took over schematically and personnel-wise, right? So that year they ended up finishing 26th in point differential, 30th in total points, and 32nd in takeaways. Now, they ran a 4-3 defense 22% of the time. That was the 5th highest rate in the league. Now, they liked that 4-3, one high safety structure. They would stack the box more often than other teams, and they maintained that coverage versatility on the outside. The thing is, the 2023 Ravens, if you look at him just under Mike McDonald, they were way different. They ran 48% of the time. They ran a 3-3-5 alignment. It was the second most in the league, and the Ravens liked to play with light boxes. They barely stacked the box. It ranked 5th in light box usage rate. They deployed the 3rd most 2-high shells in the league and only blitzed 18% of the time. Again, compared to what the Texans used to do, about 36%. So now, but if you look at it, there were times where stylistically Weaver would run his aggressive looks in Houston, would come out of a 3-4, and they would go most of the time when they were getting aggressive out of 3-4, they were coming out of a single high shell, obviously. And, again, you go back to talk about that 3-3-5 alignment, right? And, I think you're going to see, and I was talking with some people about this, it seems like you might see a little bit more turnover in the secondary coaching-wise, right? It seems like they do need someone who can, who's more well-versed in cover 1, 2-man, 3-5, 5 Kathy, the stuff that you see. Because, if you look at him, he becomes from the line of Crennel, Wink, and Mike Peyton, right? Like, Mike Peyton in 2014 was the coach of the Cleveland Browns, and that's where him and Mike McDonald met, under Mike Peyton. And Mike Peyton, right, before that was under Rex Ryan, and Anthony Weaver was on that staff in New York. So when you look at the lineage he comes back to, it all goes back to Dean Pease. Like, we're talking like pre-2010 Patriots stuff that this lineage can be tied back to when you look at who Weaver's tied to, from Crennel to Wink to Peyton to Dean Pease, is where it all basically comes from here, right? So, and we talk about aggressive. It's a different kind of aggressive, because if you look at over the last 2 seasons, the Ravens only blitzed on about 21.3% of opposing dropbacks. That was 21st in the NFL. But they still ranked 8th in the NFL in pressures with 445, and they ranked 3rd with 108 sacks over those 2 seasons. Now, the Ravens, last year they ran a very almost identical rate of zone coverage to the Miami Dolphins, right? But they had their outside corners in press coverage almost 30% of the time, almost a third of the time. It was about 28%. That was 3rd most in the NFL. When you compare that to what we were doing with Fangio, again, almost identical amount of zone called, but we only pressed with our boundary corners about 4% of the time. That was the second lowest rate in the NFL. And it's really because McDonald, he would lessen the blitz rate of Baltimore in favor of post-snap movement, right? Out of that two high safety structures. They like to disguise what they're doing. Again, not like Fangio, but like Fangio. Kind of like what we saw Spags do, how they like to disguise what they were doing, especially that second time they faced us, right? So, they would blitz less in favor of more post-snap movement out of two high safety shells, and they would simulate the pressure. So, and what I mean by that is you're talking about, like, for example, that first level defender, the edge is going to drop back into coverage, or one of your interior linemen is going to drop back into coverage, and instead you're going to send the pressure from the second or third level, whether it's a corner blitzing off the edge or whether it's a linebacker creeping up and basically switching coverage responsibilities with a player on the line and then blitzing from said spot into that gap. So they try to confuse, and it goes back to what he said, right? They want to shut down the run and they want to make you pass. It's the clip I played. So when they make you pass, they can do this kind of stuff to you. Now, here's the thing. Weaver doesn't come from Mike McDonald's lineage. Well, he does, because Mike McDonald comes from Wink, et cetera, et cetera. But they do things differently in terms of, like, if you look what Wink did to what Mike McDonald did, even though they're from the same lineage, Mike McDonald doesn't blitz as much. Right? And he was, again, disguising his blitzes much better than Wink was. And much more complex than Wink was. So, again, we go back to 2020. 2020 isn't even a very fair assessment because a lot of it was Romeo Crennel's defense, and it was his personnel that he put together. You didn't let him basically spread his wings and fly. That's why I think you're going to see more of that 3-4 stuff that McDonald was running. I think you'll see that more than the 4-3 stuff he was basically hampered to by Romeo Crennel and the personnel. So it's going to be interesting because, again, the Texans mostly used, they ran the 5th highest rate in the league of 4-3, running 22% of the time in Houston. But when he was in that 3-4 and he was in that single high shell, that's when you saw him really start to be aggressive. So here's what it comes down to. No one can tell you right now except Anthony Weaver and his staff and maybe Greer and McDaniel because they've heard his vision. No one can tell you right now exactly what Anthony Weaver's going to run in Miami with this defense. I can tell you this. I said this when we hired him. I'll say it again. You are going to see defenders used in multiple ways, whether it's the simulated pressures we just talked about or it's the alignment of a Javon Holland. I think you're going to get back to seeing Jalen Ramsey used more of a chess piece. Like, who makes a ton of sense? I know people are talking about, okay, Patrick Queen or this and that. You know who actually makes a ton of sense coming over here? Exactly, Sea Devil. It's going to be hybrid's the name of the game with this defense from the players to what we're running. You know who would be interesting? Because remember, they ran a lot of that 3-3-5. And then we need a guy well-versed in 5 and 5 Cathy and stuff too on the back end. That's why Ronaldo Hill might go. What about Geno Stone? I don't think not enough people are talking about the fit Geno Stone would be in this defense. Deshaun Elliott's a free agent. Geno Stone was just under Anthony Weaver in Baltimore in terms of, okay, Weaver was the assistant/associate coach and the D-line coach, but still, the coach. I think Geno Stone, quietly that makes sense. Quietly, Geno Stone makes sense. Now, I know Patrick Queen has said he wants to follow Anthony Weaver, and he loves Anthony Weaver, and hell, if Baker walks, we'll need Patrick Queen. But what's Patrick Queen's contract going to look like? You know? So, anyways, again, going back to being multiple on the back end, I talked about this. You know, look at what they did last year. All right? Look at what that Ravens did last year. This is what Sandusky was talking about us being we are going to be very matchup based when it comes to game planning. And what I mean by that is this. I do think this is something he's going to take. And what we talk about when we want guys to be multiple and doing multiple things. This is what we're talking about. So week 1 against the Texans this year. All right. The Ravens ran cover 3 23.6% of the time, most in that game out of any coverage package. All right. Against the Bengals, they ran cover 1 22.8% of the time in week 2. Then against the Colts, they ran cover 1 39.3% of the time. So first week mainly out of cover 6, next 2 weeks out of cover 1. Now, why does that matter? This is why that kind of matters a little bit, right? If you look at week 2 against the Bengals is who they played. When they ran 22.8% of their packages were cover 1. They sent extra rushers on 11.6% of Joe Burrow's dropbacks. But then against the Colts, again, where they primarily ran cover 1 and they ran it 39.3% of the time, they sent extra rushers 51% of the time. So you see how they ran predominantly cover 1 2 weeks in a row, but up front, how different they were, how aggressive they were, right? You know what I mean? Like that's, you know, and then you go back and then the Browns, they play the Browns week 4 after the Colts and the Bengals back-to-back weeks. But then against the Browns, they primarily ran cover 3 and cover 4, but then they were back down to blitzing only about 14% of the time. So you see how multiple just the first 4 weeks of that season for the Ravens. Like that's, you know, that's what they like to do. You look at Geno Stone. Geno Stone was key. He was key here. He played 13.6% of his snaps in the box. 71% of his snaps at free safety, 11.4% of his snaps in the slot, over the first, 15 weeks of the season. He makes sense coming here. He really does. And you look at just how multiple they're going to be. Like, they're just, it's different. Because after you get to the Browns, they ran 27. They went back to predominantly cover 6 in week 5. And then in week 6, they went predominantly cover 4. And then in week 7, 8, and 9, they were predominantly cover 3. It's going to be very matchup based. We're not going to have a stubborn guy. And I think this is what Mike McDaniel was talking about in his statement when we hired Weaver. I think this is, now I don't think he was taking a shot. Okay. I just think, it just, he talked about some of the things about sharing the belief that player development is a cornerstone and, to a franchise and team building, sustained success. You know what I mean? And he talks about, how they have aligned values in football. And I think one of the aligned values is, you saw the look on players' faces, with what was happening against Fangio's defense in the Ravens game and then the final minutes against the Titans. You saw how unwilling Fangio was to deviate from the game plan and his defensive structure. And they've got a guy in Anthony Weaver who I don't think's like that. I think you got a guy right now who, because he's been under so many, he's under Wink, then he was under Mike McDonald. He saw what worked with Wink in Baltimore, and he saw what worked with Mike McDonald in Baltimore, but he also saw what didn't work with Wink and why Wink got driven out, And even though Mike Macdonald got promoted as a head coach, there were things that didn't work, and he saw things that didn't work. And I think that you know how the Shanahan offense kind of had that wave over the NFL? Is the Mike Macdonald defense going to be that next wave? I think you're going to see a guy who's going to be, I think Sandusky, he's aggressive in multiple, that's it. That is the best way to line this up. But we will not have a better idea until he's in-house, until stuff start coming out, until we start hearing from his mouth and we start seeing, until we start seeing what he does to that staff. I think Austin Clark, Ryan Slowick, and Campanelli, with what, with, again, tracing back to Crennel, to Wink, to Mike Peyton, those guys kind of fit what they want to do, right? Flores had so they kind of fit. They're versed in that. They understand that. So, I had someone tell me that, that I was talking with Kevin Dern, who I've had up here. He said, I'll give it to him. He said Shane Bowen would be perfect if he's available to come onto the staff. So, and he's even talked about how Shane Bowen hasn't made Tua look that great in the 2 games he's faced him. So, shout out to Kevin Dern, because that's his suggestion. So, but yeah, I just laid it out for you. Right there. Everything for you. So, you're not going to find a more insightful, 15, 18 minutes on what to expect from Weaver in this defense. And, you saw the season Justin Matabuki just had under him. Look at who he's coached. He's coached with some Pro Bowlers. Mario Williams, Kyle Williams, J.J. Watt, Davion Clowney, Marcel Darius, now Justin Matabuki. Hell, he even helped lead Baltimore's 2023 offensive coordinator search when they brought in Todd Monken. So, and his defensive line contributed to the Ravens last year having the 2nd best run defense and the number 2 ranked 3rd down defense. And the number 4th overall red zone defense. So, listen. And then when you go back to 2021 and when he was the run game coordinator for the defense, 1st in rushing yards allowed, 2nd in yards per carry allowed, 1st in rushing first downs allowed. Man, one thing I'll tell you right now, and one thing we've seen that the personnel on this team has shown, running the ball is going to be very hard against the Miami Dolphins. So, there you go. There you go. That is what the Miami Dolphins defense might look like under Anthony Weaver. A lot to dissect there. A lot of numbers I just threw your way. So, a lot of information I just put on your plate. So, it's going to be interesting to see how this all turns out. I can't wait to see this defense get implemented, and it all comes down to this. Didn't matter whether it was Anthony Weaver, Brandon Staley, Leslie Frazier, doesn't matter. Mike McDaniel needs to get this right. If this defense regresses and this offense falls off a cliff again, because it's done it the past few years, whether Tua was starting or not, this offense has fallen off the cliff in late December and into January. Better get it right. We cannot afford to miss on this hire, because the ripple effects could lead to the front door of Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier. So that's it. That's just what it is. So Ken says, just compared to his numbers versus some of the games of all-time greats, he's in the top. It's true, bro. 65, yeah, and with our O-line, Ken says, exactly. 31st in pass block win rate. Huh. And this guy leads the NFL in passing yards, please. All right, so let's keep it going there. Speaking of Tua Tagovailoa, they'll try and pick things if Kurt Warner tells you all about Tua Tagovailoa without giving you the full spectrum of what Kurt Warner was saying. Example, I will tell you, they were trying to say Kurt Warner was saying Tua was a one-read quarterback when he wasn't, when he was actually talking about how the offense is built in the passing game conceptually, how it hinders a quarterback from going through his progression because there's a lot of two-read concept stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So, right, like a lot of the blame, Kurt Warner, when you actually listen to him, he was putting a lot of the blame at the feet of Mike McDaniel. Now, speaking of another quarterback and a legend and a Hall of Famer, what Miami Dolphins Tua Tagovailoa can learn from Peyton Manning at the pro game. So I'm just going to highlight, it's not about what he can learn. I want to show you what Peyton said about him. So when Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa joined Peyton Manning and his brother Eli on the Manning cast 2 months back, Tagovailoa seemed nervous and every bit starstruck by the company he was keeping. There should be no nerves if he's asked back in 2024. Tagovailoa should be comfortable with the first family of football after spending the week with them here at the Pro Bowl. Manning is Tua's coach in the still newish look Pro Bowl. Tagovailoa is one of 3 AFC quarterbacks who agreed to participate in the skills competition and Sunday's flag football game. The others were C.J. Stroud and Gardner Minshew. Patrick Mahomes is unavailable because he's prepping for the Super Bowl, while Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson declined invitations. And yet, on Saturday, Peyton Manning wasn't hanging his head. I love them, Manning said of his QB room. I love Tua, and CJ has been awesome. Been fun getting to know him. I've known Gardner for a long time, so it's been fun with all 3 of those guys. Going to let them play, and they got great weapons, obviously, with Tyreek, Diggs, and Chase and Allen, but I'm excited about it. It's been a fun week. One of Tagovailoa's biggest strengths per Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel is his ability and willingness to take instruction. On a number of occasions, McDaniel has called Tua one of the best learners he's been around. And so Tagovailoa should pick Manning's brain this week on how to make a leap from good to great. Peyton Manning really didn't become Peyton Manning until a half-decade into his career. He lost his first 3 playoff starts. His first of 5 MVP awards didn't come until his 6th season. And he threw a staggering 81 interceptions in his first 4 years as a pro. Oh, I would have loved him to be a Dolphin for Dolphins Twitter and Dolphins YouTube to be around. Y'all would have ran Peyton Manning out of here. Would have lost his first 3 playoff starts. Y'all, 2's lost 1 and y'all ready to run him out of here. Right? Took a half decade. Wasn't until year 6 he started coming in. Y'all would have ran Peyton out of here, huh? So let's keep it a buck. Let's keep the same energy. So while Tagovailoa admittedly still has much to work on his game, Manning should be held up as an example of how no quarterback is a finished product this early in their career. I had plenty of ups and downs, and there is no guarantee that just because you had a good first season or second year, that means it's going to be good the next year, Manning told reporters here Saturday. I had a bad rookie year, kind of a good second year, good third year, kind of an off fourth year. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. What's more, Tagovailoa and those who want to succeed should take heart knowing that Tagovailoa thinks his best is yet to come. Manning thinks Tagovailoa's best is yet to come, but I'm supposed to listen to some clown on Twitter who can't even break down all 22. Okay. They did a great job this offseason with training and then the sort of the approach from McDaniel to keep him healthy, getting the ball out on time, and it made a difference, right? There's a difference when you're starting quarterbacks in there every single week, especially with a guy like him and what he and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek were able to do with their timing in that offense. It's exciting, and the future is even more exciting. So you got Peyton Manning.
I got to ask you about this.
So you got Peyton Manning right there. Peyton Manning right there tells each and every one of you, how long it took him to win a playoff game. He lost his first 3 playoff starts. How long it took him. 5th, 6th year, it wasn't until he started getting going by his own accord. And yet he's saying the future's bright for Tua Tagovailoa. But I am supposed to listen. I am supposed to listen to some clown on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube that can't even watch all 22 properly. I'm supposed to listen to this. Stop. Stop right now. All right? Stop. Sam Skeet, not going to lie, you're right about that, Reeves. We definitely would have ran Peyton out. See? Yo, Sam, can I give you props? At least you're honest, brother. I'm going to give Sam Skeet the props. At least he's fucking honest. You get respect from me, Sam, for that answer. I ain't going to drag you because he's honest. These people got you all gassed up who don't even know what they're talking about, and they would have had you run a guy like that out. And then y'all would have sat back here and looked and be like, oh, we had a... And I would have had to listen as I wipe up the tears off these Twitter and YouTube streets. I would have had to listen. And you would have heard, to the moment my YouTube channel shut down, you would have just heard I told you so the whole time while I'm cleaning the tears up. There's a saying. Patience is a virtue. And the patience is paying off with Tua. Y'all don't know if CJ Stroud going to have a sophomore slump this year. He could get hurt. Knock on wood. CJ is one of the most exciting young quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't want to see him get hurt. But even Peyton said that right there, right? You could have a great first year, second year is terrible. You could have a great second year, it's not guaranteed your third year is going to be good. That's why you don't see guys. That's why guys start leveling out in like year 6, 7, and 8. Because now they understand. They just have a full-blown understanding of everything. But like I've also said, you really don't have an understanding until a guy after, 3-4 years in an offense is when you start to understand someone's ceiling in said offense. So, and all these Dolphin fans are crying for quarterback change when Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson couldn't beat Patrick Mahomes or the Kansas City defense. And you're about to see on the weekend probably Brock Purdy and the 49ers probably won't get it done. Terron Armstead. And Terron Armstead, he was a mainstay on the injury report in 2023 with a multitude of injuries. Knee injury, check. Ankle, yup. Back, yup. Quad, that too. He was on the Dolphins injury report 13 out of 17 weeks this past regular season and missed 7 games. Though the 5-time Pro Bowler's level of play hasn't taken a hit, his body certainly has. And it's led to him pondering retirement. The 32-year-old said Friday at the Pro Bowl games practice that he hasn't made a decision yet, though. Since the Dolphins' season ended in the AFC wildcard loss to the Chiefs, he's been focused on getting better in body and mind before making the anticipated determination. Just taking time away from the game. It was a long season, up and down season for myself physically. Getting away, coming out of the playoff loss to the Chiefs, I haven't even started that process. I've just been resting, recovering, and enjoying family. Armstead has 3 seasons left on his 5-year, $75 million deal with Miami. He was perhaps the most coveted free agent in the 2022 offseason before he signed with the Dolphins following 9 years with the Saints. He responded with back-to-back Pro Bowl campaigns, but he's dealt with injuries throughout his career. He's played 14 or more games just 3 times in 11 career seasons and never played a full year. Since he joined the Fins, he's played 23 of a possible 34 regular season tilts. This year might as well have been the most painful to trudge through. The season definitely wasn't challenged physically. Probably this one more than the others. This one stuck out, he said. I'm feeling well, though, healing up. I've just been resting, recovering. I haven't been doing much since the playoffs. In the end, Armstead's litany of injuries might prove to be an obstacle to artists to overcome. Nonetheless, it's clear he would be heartsick giving up the game he believes he's very much in the right spot with Miami. It's tough being away from the guys, he said. Being away from that energy, that chemistry, that cohesiveness. That's why we play the game, You get into the huddle with your guys, you're talking, you're having fun, you're making light of situations. Then on game day, you're feeling that energy of the crowd, whether it's home or away. It's just an atmosphere that you cannot recreate. When you're not playing and it's an empty feeling, it's hard to deal with. He's not dealing with it this weekend, though. He's enjoying his time in Orlando as a Pro Bowler. He's joined by 5 other Dolphins. Our expectations are at an all-time high, and that's exactly the environment and situation you want to be in. I don't want to be in a place that 6 wins is no. It's Super Bowl or nothing. That wasn't the expectation when I signed in Miami, but that's the expectation now. So, again, undecided, but sounds like it's a guy who's going to be hard to give up. Not only this is his last year of guaranteed money, but it's probably going to be hard for him to give up that camaraderie that he has with the locker room. It's going to be hard for him to give up the game. So, listen, I expect him to be back. I think this is his last year. Guys, over 400 of you in the room, smash that like button. Subscribe if you are new. I do want to go over 2 more things here. Next, I want to go over, we're going to talk about Cam Smith, and then we're going to end with Anthony Weaver. I want to go over this article from Barry Jackson and the Miami Herald regarding Cam Smith. All right, guys? And Dolphins Cam Smith is hoping for a chance. Could Fangio departure unlock that opportunity? When the Dolphins selected Cam Smith in the second round 10 months ago, the hope was that he'd be ready to step in whenever Miami and Xavier Howard eventually parted ways. Howard's future for 2024 remains very much in question because of an astronomical cap number, but the Dolphins certainly cannot assume that Smith is ready for a major role after defensive coordinator Vic Fangio seemingly played everyone except your mailman ahead of him last season. So now Smith's future is wrapped up in a series of interlocking questions. Can he do enough from April to August to earn more trust from the new defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver than he ever earned from Fangio? Will the front office nudge Weaver toward giving Smith a fresh, fair look? Which makes sense, right? We know they're about that. And will the Dolphins, with their free agency moves, create a realistic path for Smith to earning playing time? It was notable that on the afternoon the Dolphins and Fangio parted ways, Smith on Twitter/X posted a picture of a lock being unlocked. And who can blame him? Smith showed flashes throughout training camp and offseason, making several pass breakups and displaying the ball skills and instincts that motivated the Dolphins to select him 51st out of South Carolina last April. A really talented player, Chris Greer said of Smith after the draft. Versatile, instinctive. Where he was in the draft, we couldn't pass. But Smith was beaten for a touchdown in a preseason game against Jacksonville and never seemed to earn Fangio's trust. He played 210 snaps on special teams, but just 20 on defense as a rookie. He permitted 3 completions and 3 targets for 24 yards in that limited playing time. Not only did Eli Apple and Kader Kohou play ahead of him, but Smith suffered the indignity of being surpassed by undrafted rookie Ethan Bonner late in the season and for playoff time. Asked what Smith must do to get on the field, Fangio, before his departure to the Philadelphia Eagles, said, just improve in all areas, assignment, technique, execution, know-how, improve in all areas. During a conversation at his locker room in January, Smith didn't leave the impression that he was simmering about the lack of usage. He seemed to handle the situation pretty maturely. I can't dwell on it, he said. That's the hard part about it. I've embraced the role of making sure that everybody is good and straight and uplifting everybody and making sure nobody's down about a play and telling them what I see from the sideline so they can be well prepared for the next drive. Did he ever watch his games past season and think you could help defensively? Of course, he said. As a competitor, you definitely want to say you could have come out there and helped in those games, but it's not my time right now. In what areas has cornerback Sam Madison told him he needs to improve? Stay consistent in everyday football life, making sure I know what this formation is doing, and make sure in certain formations I know what I'm going to get, and certain game plans, what teams are going to do to get their players open against our defense, knowing all of that stuff. Smith said he wants to bulk up a bit so I can sustain a full season. Smith said he never had a heart-to-heart talk about the situation with Fangio, who clearly trusted Apple's experience over Smith's upside. Outside of Ramsey, the Dolphins entered the offseason with many questions at cornerback. Miami must decide whether to ask Howard to take a pay cut. Releasing him post-June 1st would result in a $7.4 million dead cap hit, but $25.9 million hit if he's on the team with his current contract. The Dolphins must determine whether to project Kader Kohou as their starting nickel after the passer rating and coverage area ballooned from 80.7 as a rookie to 132.6 this past season. And they must figure out what to do with Nick Needham as an impending free agent and whether they can go into next season banking on Smith as their top boundary guy. And they must give Smith the chance to improve about that Fangio gave him in the short stint. And he's capable of far more than what he had the opportunity to show as a rookie. Listen, I think, I know that's one of the reasons why everyone thought McDaniel was taking a shot in terms of the player development when he was welcoming Anthony Weaver. Everyone thought it was about Cam Smith. I do think there's going to be hey, we need to see more of what we got here. We invested a 51st pick in him. This was bad business. We didn't even see what we had in year one. Hey, listen, we saw, we've seen this before, right? this is not new, right? We've seen them stress that certain players need to be used more that they drafted, right? This is why we saw Eichenberg's usage go up a little bit, because they wanted to see what McDaniel's staff could do with him, right? You could talk about Tua when they started him way back when Gailey was here. They didn't even have Gailey in the meeting. So management, this goes back to, management will force staff and players on this. Like, that's just a fact. Now, some work out, some don't, whether that's staff or players. Staff, Austin Clark's worked out, right? Anthony Campanelli's worked out to an extent. I would say Ryan Slovic was more of a McDaniel pick than a Fangio pick, who was forced on Fangio. That worked out. Madison's worked out because he was forced on Fangio a little bit there, right? Players, Eichenberg did end up working out in terms of he's shown he can be somewhat of a backup for us at least. I don't think he's an everyday starter. Tua's worked out where they wanted a guy who could help develop Tua and they could see what they really had with that 5th overall pick. That's worked out. So, it is what it is. Real talk. Right? Remember, it all started when Cordell got there, huh? When Cordell Stewart got there with the Steelers, right? And you didn't win. So, yeah, you ain't lying. You ain't lying. So, okay, final thing I wanted to say about Anthony Weaver. All right, I think another thing that's huge about Weaver, shout out to Chris Kaufman at 3 yards per carry. He posted this clip, and it's from back when Weaver was with the Houston Texans. And I think it really shows how much he fits this culture we're building in Miami. Just listen to him talk here.
Everybody that's here, we are compelled to try not to waste this season. And for me, it's all about these players. And I've been in their shoes, and they have such a short window in their careers, and you never know how long it's going to last. So I understand that for a lot of people, it's a game. I get it. And we're held to a high standard. It's entertainment. I understand that. But for these players in this locker room, their careers are finite. So I understand where we're at. We're 0-4. We got to do better. But there's 12 games left to play. And us, these players and our staff, we're going to do everything in our power to try to win.
I mean, it just aligns with exactly what it aligns with exactly what McDaniel has always stressed. It literally does. It lines up with being all about the players and development, and how these players only have a short amount of time, and you got to get the most for the player, not just for the team, but for the players, right? He's talked about this, how they have a short amount of time, and that's why you got to get the most out of them so they can have the most success in that short period of time. And then you listen to Anthony Weaver talk there, and you can hear the ideals line up the exact way. I get the sense, I don't think a shot was taken at Fangio, but I get the sense that another reason why they mutually parted ways, because they really believed Fangio was about Fangio and what he wanted to do and what the defense wanted to do, what he wanted to do with his defense, which is not a wrong thing, but he wasn't about putting these players in the best position possible. And it was more so about, okay, this has got to run because it's got to be successful. It was never about, okay, well, I need this player to show he can do this. I got to develop so he can do this in this defense. I got to develop him in area A, area B, so he can do this of what I'm going to ask him for. It was never about that. It was, I need this done. Give me someone who has it done. I don't have time for this. And to an extent, that's like a guy who, comes back to it. Fangio wants to coach again. So Fangio, it's coming about being a better leader of men. Now, it's one thing to be a leader with scheme, but you got to be a leader with scheme, philosophy, and of men. That whole hard-nosed, stubborn, old-school style of way of coaching, it's being phased out. And you got to be more open to not even criticism, but you got to be open to fair critiquing from your own staff, which we know Mike McDaniel is. You got to be open to fair critiquing, but when you got a player like Jalen Ramsey, who Fangio, between you and him, who's won a Super Bowl in an iteration of your defense? Ramsey. So guess what? His opinion holds weight, especially when you look at the check they're cutting to him every week. Listen, if Ethan Bonner comes to you with suggestions, I get you saying, listen, kid, back of the line. Jalen Ramsey comes to you, you got to be open to, and you got to be collaborative. And collaborative doesn't mean you got to do exactly what he says, but you still at least got to be open to what he's saying and suggesting. So, it's a collaborative effort, from top to bottom in this organization. So we'll see how it goes. Listen, I'll be back tomorrow night. And then on Wednesday, I'll be here with Richmond and Ball Game. Then, on Thursday, me and Neil. This weekend, it's the Super Bowl. I'll be live for the Super Bowl. So a lot of content coming this way. Appreciate all of you guys for coming through. Over 400 of you came to watch today. So smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new. And I will see y'all on the next one. Until Margaritaville sends that cease and desist, fins up all day, every day.